Well, look who showed up. It is Monday night, and this is Brad Stine, God's Comic, and this is Brad Stine Has Issues, where comedy, conservatism, and Christianity collide in a cacophony of clarity. Tonight, we have a very special guest. I don't know if you guys are big movie buffs, but there's been a movie out in the last few months called Unsung Hero that dealt with the Smallbone family that created Rebecca St. James and For King and Country. Well, the story was about their father who took them to the United States and tried to make a go of it. And we're having the father on tonight to do the interview. The actual guy. We're not using Joel Smallbone, who played the father. We're not using Rebecca, who I'm sure played something else. We're not talking about the family. The actual guy showed up, David Smallbone, from the Smallbone family, and helping create his daughter and the career of his sons with For King and Country is here tonight. This is a special artist version of Brad Stine Has Issues. And you know what? I feel free to speak these things out. If you are brand new to Brad Stine Has Issues, then you would be wondering what we're all about. Well, you know, one of the things we're really all about is free speech. And, you know, when I say free speech, I don't mean like they usually charge you for speech, or you have to rent speech, or you have to put speech on consignment, or that you go to, you win a lottery and you get a free speech, or somebody just sort of hands you, hey, listen, I've got a speech. I've got numerous speeches. This one's free. It's a public domain. It's actually the Lincoln Douglas debate. So, yeah, you can go use this speech anywhere you want. It's a free speech. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the actual First Amendment of the United States that allows us to speak freely without concern about being harassed or broken into by a government official that's decided to steal our freedom in the greatest, freest nation that's ever been. And yet that's what's happening on a regular basis now. And so we got to do something about it. So I'm going to do whatever I can until they come break down my doors and come pull me out of here kicking and screaming. And, of course, Wyatt can't show up and do anything about it because he's invisible. He's the invisible guy. And, matter of fact, I should say hi to Wyatt. He's my sidekick, my producer, my director. He's my choreographer. He does wear a tutu and ballet slippers when he's doing his segment, and makes him feel like he's in character. Wyatt, are you feeling?
Look, man. Sometimes you just need you have a routine that gets you in the mood to do your job.
It's method acting.
My method is tutu and ballerina shoes, okay?
All right.
Tell you what, when you're good enough to produce a podcast with dozens of people watching, then you have the right to criticize my technique.
I'm not criticizing it. I said good for you that you have such courage and such...
Yeah, but you said it in that sort of way that implies that you weren't really being genuine.
Do you mean condescending?
I was thinking more sarcastic, but condescending is a good word too. It's a whole syllable more.
Condescending.
Yes, that is the word.
Wait a minute. You thought I was talking to you in a condescending manner. Is that what you're saying?
No, I thought you were being sarcastic.
Sarcastic. Me. Sarcastic.
I know it's hard to believe.
Well, folks, I'll tell you what's really hard to believe. We live in the greatest nation on earth, and we're watching our freedoms come and go, and once they're gone, they stay gone. But guess what? I did a little clip in the original Brad Stine Has Issues, for those who've seen the old show in black and white, that talked about free speech. And I thought, I'm going to talk a little bit about it, but I'm going to just show a clip of the old rant because, I did it. I might as well get some use out of it. So this was my free speech clip. Rant that I did a while back. Matter of fact, why don't you take a look at it and get a feel for where we're about to go on my next rant or my postscript. Go ahead and hit it away. Speech. What does that term mean to you when you hear it? Does it mean that no one can keep you from speaking your mind and exercising your free autonomy of ideas in the marketplace? Ultimately, I think that is the plain explanation that all of us took for granted. Taking freedoms for granted, by the way, is the surest way to lose them. To think that because we once had free speech and that it is established in the First Amendment means it is sacrosanct is exactly why it isn't there anymore existentially. If it's not protected and enforced against those that would forbid it, then for all intents and purposes, the phrase is meaningless. When I began to warn Americans about political correctness 20 years ago, it was exactly for the fact that if we were not vigilant and proactive in destroying political correctness influence, then we would definitely suffer its consequences. Well, my friends, we are here. Remember that political correctness is cultural Marxism and thus behaves as such. As in all communist socialist regimes, it censors speech. It doesn't approve of, but hides it under the virtue signaling smokescreen of being sensitive to the marginalized. It speaks of tolerance and then glibly marginalizes and censors those they deem intolerant. Tolerance has no meaning unless it tolerates what it hates. Why? Simple. Ask yourself this question. In your entire life, how many times did you have to tolerate something you liked or believed in? If the answer is never, then tolerance was only for ideas you hate. That is literally what tolerance means by definition. Merriam-Webster, who always felt it best to keep her opinions and definitions in book form rather than speak them out loud, defined tolerance this way. Tolerance: capacity to endure pain or hardship. Endurance, fortitude, stamina. Notice you're expected to endure what you disagree with. You are to resolve to establish fortitude towards antithetical ideas so as to further the greater good of a society that needs all thought available and dispersed so as to best compare and evaluate ideas that are superior to others, and some are. Notice by implication, the original definition of tolerance implied that some ideas were better than others, or there would be, well, never any ideas to tolerate. Yet, now the leftist definition of tolerance has morphed into the great irony that tolerance means exactly the opposite of the original meaning. To be truly tolerant, you must not tolerate hate speech, which again, ironically, is speech the left hates. Yet the second definition of tolerance is sympathy or indulgence for beliefs or practices differing from or conflicting with one's own. And maybe most poignant of all, the third definition of tolerance is simply the act of allowing something. Because the left has made it their mission to censor and vilify those with conservative opinions, they've placed conservative opinions in a moral category by claiming they are immoral. Notice the terms trotted out by the left whenever they steal your liberties. We must stop hate speech. Well, who defines hate speech? They do. We must be tolerant of people different than us. What does tolerate mean to them? We must accept, agree with, and support views we vehemently disagree with. What is the punishment for those of us who will not submit to the destruction of our liberties? Well, we'll lose our jobs, reputations, ability to provide for our families, ability to communicate and speak freely. We will be vilified and ostracized from society and made to be seen as pariahs who are immoral and evil. So the left, which has eliminated God as a reality and as a necessary need in a free society to establish natural rights and restrain power, loving mankind, have become God themselves. When you condemn some ideas and thoughts as immoral, you are entering the domain of metaphysics. You are creating a moral perimeter that, if you were to wander off, makes you an escaped convict, absent without leave, and a danger to the rest of us that want to control you. So, let me make this clear. The reason you cannot reason with the left is because they don't view their point of view as subjective preferences. They deem it as sacrosanct and holy. It's hard to follow that. That guy's a genius. But then again, it's me following me. And I can follow me. If one must follow me, then I shall. I wanted to ask a question. It's something I've been seeing a lot about in YouTube, and especially from comedians. Now, keep in mind, and I've said this to you many, many times, the thing about comedy that makes it so important is that it was kind of given a pass to say whatever it wanted. Now, here's what I'm curious about, and I really need you to think this through. Do you believe in free speech? That's what someone might ask you. Do you believe in free speech? Most people, unless they are an absolute diehard progressive leftist Marxist totalitarian, would say, I believe in free speech. I think that speech should be free for people to be able to speak their mind, think how they want, do what they want, say what they want, and so forth. But as I have told you guys before, because I'm always trying to teach you a little bit and trying to inspire you a little bit, and it fails miserably, and why wouldn't it? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a comedian. That means I'm intrinsically an idiot. Nevertheless, free speech, if you think you believe in it or want to support it, it can only be defined like this. I believe in free speech if I want and allow and would defend speech that I despise to be freely able to hit the airwaves. Now, if you haven't noticed, in society, by the certain elite, they want to stop free speech. They arrested that guy, the French guy from, what is it, Telescope, or I forgot.
Telegram.
Telegram. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Telegram.
And they arrested him because he didn't do enough to stop speech that some people have decided needed to go. And of course, Elon Musk, people have actually asked to have him arrested. And so that's when you know, okay, this is worldwide totalitarianism by a special always self-appointed elite. These are people that are never voted for. These are people that we never came and said, please help us. These are people that we never said, listen, we're going to step back, take our rights, do what you need to, but make sure that X is rid of anything I don't want to see. And so what you really need to decide for yourself is what should be expected of me when it comes to my ability to hear and respond to verbiage that I don't want to hear. And it's funny because when you have a channel, like I've got Brad Stine Has Issues, a YouTube channel. Did you know I had that, Wyatt? Brad Stine had Issues YouTube channel. Have you heard of that?
Oh, yeah, I've heard of it. I keep trying to get to it, but I always run into problems.
What is it?
Oh, well, another way to call it, I guess, is issues. It's a thing that happens that you don't want it to.
I got you.
But that's not important right now.
No, that's what we're not talking about that. But what I did want you to understand is that we are a weaker people. It seems every year. In most people that I've done some of the research said it started around 2014 when the colleges really started flipping from wanting more free speech, and the students would say we want more free speech, to saying we want less, or we feel less free to speak freely on campus. And so once that began to become true, and then a generation of kids come through, they're being taught, if you feel hurt or offended, well, that speech should be eliminated. It's offended you. It's made you uncomfortable. And they said, oh, this is great. I know when I was a little baby, when I was 3 and 4 and screamed and cried and yelled and got my way, it worked. And then that kind of stopped. And then I realized that maybe if I just sort of made sure that nobody could ever disagree with me, or I was going to take my ball and go home, that was the way you were going to try to do it. And maybe that worked with your friends, but parents would get involved and say, no, it don't work like that. And you had to grow up. You had to be mature. You had to learn how to negotiate each other's different points of view, or you stop being friends. That's okay. You don't have to be friends with everybody. But you had to navigate the fact that people are going to be different than you, and some people aren't going to like you. And so it makes me wonder, what why do words hurt us? And can they actually hurt us? Because if you think about it, and I'm just making this up on the fly. Let me give you a way to, how can I make a kind of a parable? Sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never harm me. Just a little ditty I threw together there to try to make my point. What is it, Wyatt?
That is horrible advice.
What do you mean?
First of all, if sticks are breaking your bones, don't go on a hiking trip. Right. You won't come back out alive. Second of all, what do you mean words don't hurt? They just don't hurt physically. But if you tell someone after their father died, oh, they were actually a horrible person,
right? You
should feel bad.
Okay, so
it's gonna have some effect.
That's what I want to talk about, and for us to talk about that deeply, it's going to have to be between me and my son, and it's our little moment where we talk about these hard things, and I call it Wyatt's wisdom.
Despite the fact that you're the one who initiates it.
Right.
That was it. That was it. I purposely didn't see that ahead of time, so I could be, first reaction. That was it. I could do that.
I wanted a theme song. I wanted a little. You know what you should do? You should put some backtrack to that, like just rhythm, just.
No, yeah, I'll basically do a whole drum riff to it, but I'll do it a cappella like you just did.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, real low budget, real issue.
Well, son, I would hate to break our streak.
It just wouldn't be the same without it. No. Like, who would watch a podcast? Brad Stine is perfectly fine.
Yeah, or Brad Stine's got this thing down.
Well, Brad Stine solved all the problems, and it's nothing but light at the end of this tunnel.
Brad Stine has all the answers.
Brad Stine, newly enlightened master.
Brad Stine, metaphysical mechanic.
Brad Stine has run out of ways to describe himself.
I have. You know what, Wyatt, though? Here's what I was going to say. So you said something interesting, and that's why I felt like we might as well head to Wyatt's wisdom, because apparently you wanted to jump in full force, all your feet in. You didn't even take your bathing suit, put it on. Man. You just went in with your clothes on, and you're wearing a tutu.
Look, I'm going on that diving board. I don't care that it says no diving. I don't care that it's a 2-foot kiddie pool. I see the diving board. I'm going to jump in.
Yeah. No, you've always been just like that. You're just cares to the wind. You've always been that way. So, Wyatt, let me ask you this. If somebody's father, let's use your analogy. Somebody's father died, and somebody says, he was a rotten jerk anyways. I'm glad he's gone. And you're going to be hurt by that, right? What hurt?
Well, that's a good question. If I had to think off the top of my head,
yeah.
When somebody dies, the only thing that's left is their memories. Right. And memories, as you are probably aware, can elicit positive feelings or negative feelings.
Yeah.
To taint that memory by corroding it, by saying, oh, they're terrible, all those happy memories meant nothing, is to sort of cause the emotions associated with the person to go negative.
Well, here's the thing, Wyatt, and obviously I know that people can be hurt and be insulted. It's real. I'm not denying that. Obviously, I don't want a world where people insult. But I think what I'm trying to metaphysically dig down is, what is it about the words that make us physically, emotionally respond to it? It's a word, which means I have to hear the word. I have to interpret the word as to its intent. And I have to allow that word to have weight and some power and some actual, almost physicalizes it into a means by which it can harm me. Because what is emotional? What is depression, right? What is all this stuff really? Because if the word can harm me, but it's a word, it's a sound, a sound in a certain pattern that I hear and interpret to mean or have a value that affects me. And it does do that. If that's true, Wyatt, then why couldn't I simply hear it, know what they're trying to do, and decide, I don't care what you think. I'm not going to receive that word. I know what I believe about the person. That's all that matters. Your word means nothing. And why wouldn't you have equal power to disarm that word? And wouldn't that make you an even stronger, more balanced, more powerful person?
That's a good question. As for more powerful, kind of personal opinion, like how you respond to it.
Well, more powerful in that somebody can't hurt you with words.
Okay, but
if I know I can hurt you with my words and make you do whatever I want because I would say words and you just jump, and suddenly you say, I'm not doing that anymore, are you more powerful or weaker?
Well, I mean, in that case, more powerful. But in the case of get out of the building, it's on fire, you can't tell me what to do. I don't care about your words. And then the house falls on you. Probably not as strong then. So there's a difference between ignoring words and ignoring the person saying the words.
Yes, and obviously, if it's a practical application of words, hey, the building's burning, you might want to get out.
Yeah.
I'm talking about when somebody tries to insult you. Because what is the insult? It's not real. It's not like fire. If I don't get out of the burning building, guess what? A physical manifestation of fire will kill me. But if I say, you're a jerk and I hate you, nobody likes you, and you say, you know what, I don't believe that. I don't care now, and you move on. It can't go any further. You killed the word.
Well, I was using a more literal example.
Clearly.
An extreme literal example. A more subtle one would be, hey, you should probably lose some weight, You're like, I think you'd look better.
Yeah.
That could be something interpreted both positively or negatively.
Right.
So how do you choose if you ignore it or not?
Well,
because it could be this person's just genuinely caring about you and your health, or they could be insulting you. How do you determine that?
Well, here's the thing, though. If somebody says, I think you would look better if you lost some weight, they're giving their opinion, number one. So if you don't care about this person's opinion, it has no weight. But
what if it's sound medical advice? What if you're like 600 pounds? Exactly.
Or what if they say that in a building that's on fire?
And it's about to collapse on you.
Exactly. Yeah. And the fat person can't get out fast enough because they're stuck.
And they'll also get in front of someone who's talking to some random person telling them to get out of there.
Right. See, what I'm trying to get at is this.
I feel like we've spent 5 minutes talking about everything about the problem and then not solving the problem.
Because I don't know that I've ever...
It's a tough conversation, though.
Well, I'm sure psychological, like if you went to... If there was if we ever had a psychologist or psychotherapist watching our show, which Wyatt will never happen, but if we did...
They'd probably be on, actually, to psychoanalyze the people who watch this.
Well, here's the deal, though. I'm sure there has to be a study into emotional health. Obviously, that's what whole psychotherapy, right, is, counseling is. So I'm not saying it's not real and that's not hurtful. What I'm trying to figure out is what is hurt? What is it that's hurt? It's your feelings. But you can kind of control your feelings, right? You can kind of...
Some people can. Others can't as well. It's sort of a spectrum, It sort of depends on... I don't even know what, but probably like upbringing, just general who you are as a person. It's probably not something that everyone can quite as easily just tune out.
Do what?
Negative comments.
Yes.
Or even positive comments.
But again, what is a comment? What is
a comment? Is a short, brief window into someone else's perception of you.
Right. But has nothing to do with you. It's not a physical attack. It's not a stick or a stone, which, as we've established, breaks your bones.
It's not a stick or a stone. It's more like the person throwing them. It's the source of a potential problem, not the problem itself.
So the problem is that you think this person's suddenly going to now punch me?
No, you're taking what? No, what? No. A stick or a stone can hurt you.
Yeah.
But the stick or the stone is not the thing that's actually like
The person
the sticks and
that
stones
wields,
don't just go around harassing random
the
people.
person that wields
yeah.
the stick and the stone is the problem.
Yeah,
But
replace stick and stone with words, and that's basically the same thing.
no, that's the problem. That's what's happening on campuses. That's exactly what the kids are saying. Words are violence. They're saying exactly, and it's costing us freedom because they're saying the word hurt me. If I say I'm a woman and I'm a man and I don't acknowledge that, that hurts me. They don't just say, I don't like that you disagreed with me, or I feel uncomfortable or out of sorts because you're not acknowledging how I see myself. They're saying it has a physical manifestation of violence upon me. That's not true. That's my point about all of this. When you say I'm hurt, you're not hurt like I stabbed you. You're hurt internally because if I say I'm going to will this knife not to hurt me when you stab me, it's still going to hurt. I'm going to will this stick not to hurt me, still going to hurt because my physical biology and the nerves and my brain accompanying that and saying, hey, you've been hurt, you've been damaged. I can't do anything about it. It's a physical manifestation. But my mind can turn it off. If I was asleep and somebody said, you're a jerk, you're fat, you're ugly, how would I be affected? I wouldn't, because I didn't hear it. Then I wake up and they say, you're a jerk, you're fat, you're ugly. And now suddenly it hurts. It hurts for what? It's not physical. And yet, when we feel it, choose to feel it, it does take on physical manifestations. That, to me, is a proof of God, because thoughts are immaterial. They are not material. If I say to you, think of an apple, and I cut your head open, there's no apple in there. It's not there, but you can see it, you can image it, you can make it appear, you can make it disappear, all in your mind, all in thoughts, immaterial, that relates to and reflects a tangible, dimensionalized object. It correlates. So you're putting an image in your mind, but yet you can imagine what it smells like, what it feels like, what it tastes like, and yet you aren't actually damaged, and you can turn it off by simply saying, I don't care what you say, and suddenly nothing is left. There's nothing left. And this is what we have now in this nation. These people don't want to have to even grapple with being strong enough to say, I will not allow you to define for me how I feel about myself. That is more important to teach somebody that than to teach them you never have to hear somebody say anything about you don't like. Who gives you the right, the privilege to believe that you get to go through your entire life without being offended, or that everybody has to kowtow to your latest desire as to how you see yourself, and everybody simply has to acknowledge it so you can function? That's on you. Get some therapy. Get some help. Wyatt, get some counseling. That's what I'm saying about the sticks and stones of our words.
But a counselor only helps with words. What if I just ignore them on accident, trying to solve the problem?
Drat!
It's the one flaw in the theory.
I didn't see that coming.
Honestly, the only people who are ever truly happy in life must be the deaf.
What if they counsel me using sticks and stones?
That'll definitely leave a mark, physically and emotionally.
Nice! We just changed the world, son!
That's right, if it wants to start beating each other up, you feel better.
That was Wyatt's wisdom. Wyatt, show him that card that took 3 seconds to make.
Oh, you...
We just had Wyatt's wisdom.
You've got to be kidding. This is what we waited a week to have created. Witty?
Hey, I want to say who's out there tonight.
Hold on.
Yeah, did you do Wyatt's wisdom?
Not yet, hold on.
Come on, do Wyatt's wisdom. Come on, get it out there. That was Wyatt's wisdom.
It ended 2 seconds ago. Why are you still going?
Because it didn't hit here yet. Listen, guess who came in first today?
I'm going to guess Ashley Hall.
Ashley Haas. I don't know if you know who Ashley Haas is. Have you ever heard of Formula One racing?
Yeah, I kind of liked it at first.
Ashley Haas
at some point, it just became too formulaic.
You know why they call it WD-40?
Yeah, it was the 40th attempt at making the formula.
It was the 40th formula.
For
Ashley
One.
Haas is a Formula One driver. She's from Spain. She has driven for 15 years for Kensington, and she is a world champion, and she's a big fan of Brad Stine Has Issues. Jim Bronaugh is here. Good to be with you, Brad and White. I hope you all had a good day. I'm just some guy. That, of course, is Saint Nick, but he's lost his sainthood ever since he became just some guy. Paula Faye Marie Raucci has 4 names, and she's my favorite 4-named lady. Dusty, I guess, is right there. Gianna Sizemore, hey, Brad. Cabo's there. Hi, Brad. Hi, White. Hi, all my wonderful friends. You know, Karen Boyd, she's so sweet. She's so nice. And yet she doesn't know how to drive a Formula One car. Let's see. I guess Carrie Tudor's going to be late. Ashley Haas, who, I don't know if I mentioned her, she's a Formula One driver from Spain. But she just said that Carrie Tudor has Bible study tonight, so she might be a little late tonight. Let me think. Anybody else here that I haven't said hello to? Dan Stenson showed up, my goodness. You know, St. Nick said the recent videos on YouTube of the Tucker Carlson tour have been great. They're praying and talking about God. Great videos. Yeah, I saw him bring in Russell Brand, who got down on his knees and prayed. And I'm sitting here going, I don't know about this Russell Brand. Don't put him on the front page of I'm the New Christian, because it always fails. Let the guy work it out with fear and trembling. Give him some time to figure out if this makes sense. It's hard. You're going to get a lot of fighting against you. The enemy doesn't want you. This dude started praying. I'm going, amen, hallelujah. I'm like, got my hands in there. It's like, he's nailing it. It's like, he's one of us. So, you know, God is doing a mighty work, Wyatt, even with Formula One drivers. So let me think here. Anybody I'm guessing is anywhere. Boop, boop, bow, bow, bow. So Cable says, until words shoot out if my mouth, like on Sesame Street, words cannot physically cause harm. So she's right. That's what I was getting at. That's really what I was trying to say. And yet, there's power in words. So this, I mean, I'm kind of navigating this right now because, again, I don't say that that words don't have power. God Almighty made everything that exists from his word. He spoke a word and there was material. He spoke a word and there were stars. He spoke a word and there was water. He spoke a word and there were universes. It's so big. Wyatt, the universe is so big. It is so gigantic that if I wanted to walk to the end of the universe and I started right now and didn't stop, it would take me 6-7 years. Easy.
6? What are you, jogging or running? Come on, man. Pick up the pace.
Oh, yeah.
Listen. If I wanted to walk across the universe and I started here right now, I'd make it about halfway to Pittsburgh before I realized, oh, wait, I left my rocket at home.
Yes, rockets help, son.
They are a underutilized aspect.
Rocket Man burning out his fuse up here alone. Anyways, that's an old song.
I can tell it's old. They were still using fuses to get rockets to blast off.
Well, Wyatt, wouldn't that be fun, though? The first guy to the moon and you got to light the fuse.
And then you're ready to go home, and then you realize there's no oxygen in space, so your lighter doesn't work. So now you can, unless it's one of those party poppers where you just pull the string and it just blows up.
So wait, you can't light fire on the moon?
Fire requires 3 ingredients: an ignition source, fuel, and oxygen.
Okay.
There ain't no oxygen in space, man. So where's the fire gonna go?
You call me a spaceman.
Are you a spaceman? Yeah.
I don't know. How about if I took a tube out of my oxygen and went shh?
I mean, that could work. Let's just hope you don't asphyxiate before you die.
Are you trying to hurt me with that word asphyxiate?
If anything, I was hurting myself because I could barely pronounce it.
That was not coming out smooth, son. Well, listen.
It's a fun word, though, asphyxiate.
I want to talk to you about something.
Oh, wait a second. Oh, okay.
Well, it's a great word, son. And I didn't know you wanted a lot of props.
We're out of time for another tangent, huh?
Well, listen. No, here's what I want you to know. I don't know if you realize that part of the whole idea of words is politeness. Now, I got a brand new show out that I'm going to be filming in November, and it'll be ready finally for you all to see, called Laugh While It's Legal. I've told you guys about it. And I do talk about the idea of words and how whoever controls words controls the people. And but one of the things that's interesting is that they have there's something about being polite. We have this term called being polite, being courteous, and that is simply cultural conventions. They're not necessarily sinful that you that you cover your mouth, when you yawn. It's a convention. We've asked to do that, but there's some out there I'm not sure you're aware of. For example, did you know that in India, they eat with their hands? You've eaten Indian food. You love Indian food, son. But you know what? You're not allowed to eat with your left hand. It's considered incredibly rude.
Well, yeah, and do you know why?
Because lefties are demonic.
Okay, so I want to preface this by saying I am not 100% certain of this, but what I've heard is because back before indoor plumbing was a thing,
yeah,
the left hand was the one you wiped your bum with.
Okay. So if we were eating a communal, what's that bread you like? Non bread, and that dip you like?
The basic curry.
Yeah, but it's so delicious. And it's all sitting there in a big tray. We're all sitting there together eating. We're all taking and eating communally. And I take my left hand and I grab a big old naan bread and dip it into your dip and eat it. That's going to be off-putting, Wyatt.
It'll be off-putting regardless because you just ate my food.
That's true. And with a poopy hand.
Even if you use your right hand, that would still get you a stink eye from me.
Do you know that in Chile, it's rude to use either hand because they demand you use utensils. They don't let you use either hand. So apparently in Chile, they wipe their bum with both hands.
Those fools underestimate my power.
I know.
I'd use my feet.
Now, here's something else I don't know if you know about. I don't know how we ended up on scatological terminology. You brought it up, so here we are.
What do you mean I brought it up? You're the one who did the Indian.
I didn't say why that was the case. You're the one that had to go into deep...
Exactly. Like you expect me to believe that you did that without knowing the history behind it, mister. I have a library the size of a sticking Library of Congress in my backyard.
I just have enough decorum not to bring it up on live television, and apparently that doesn't apply to you.
Well, guess what? It's a conversation starter, and if those words hurt you, then guess what, pal? Put a helmet on.
Amen, and slam it down tight. Listen, Greece, Turkey, Macedonia, Bulgaria, Ukraine. You are not allowed to flush the toilet after going doo-doo because their plumbing isn't usually designed to allow you to take down the toilet paper. They actually have little bins next to it that you place the paper in. And when you are utilizing this very human need, you don't flush it, you put it into a bin, Wyatt.
Isn't toilet paper designed to beat the water soluble?
Not in Bulgaria, Turkey, Greece,
kind of
Macedonia.
Bush League single-ply restaurant toilet paper do they have in Indonesia?
And when you throw it in the bin, only use your left hand. Listen, in the...
You were getting mad at me about the Indian.
Listen,
come on.
I need to understand.
You knew what you were doing.
Have you ever seen the joke I did years ago about Christians have curse words and that
Yep.
and that we have like
yeah, like gee willikers.
Well, anyways, I talked about also the middle finger.
Yep.
And I said to myself, why is the middle finger a derogatory term or an insult? And the whole premise was it's just a finger like this. If I do that and I decide from now on this is the ultimate insult, it's just a finger. That's not bad. That's not bad. That's not bad. That's not bad. But if I put the middle one up, suddenly that's bad. Now, Wyatt, in England, if you put up like this is what, a peace sign, right? What's
to us, yeah.
Yeah, to us. Ringo Starr still does this from the 60s.
It's bunny ears behind the person of your friend's head when you're taking a picture.
But did you know that if I just did it that way, would that make a difference to you?
Well, it just makes it more clear what you're trying to do.
But in the UK, this is like the middle finger.
Well, you know why, right?
No!
Well,
because people poop with their left hand.
No. Back in medieval times,
yes,
archers would use those two fingers to draw their bows.
Okay.
And when archers were captured, they'd cut off, I believe, the middle finger so they couldn't draw their bows anymore. But then after, like, the army won, the archers would do this to the enemy to be like, hey, you didn't get us.
Oh.
And so I believe that's at least the origin of how it became a saying, I guess.
I got to tell you something. I didn't know when I brought up this clever information.
It's called Wyatt's wisdom for a reason,
well,
pal. You didn't think I knew a thing or two?
Okay, but in Russia, Greece, Iran, and Sardinia.
Also, what Wikipedia article did you pull this information
Listen
from
to me.
30 minutes before we started?
If I do this, what does that mean?
In America, it means, well, actually, isn't it a white power thing now? Didn't they?
No,
like...
that's white.
No, it isn't. It's an okay sign.
They said it's white power.
Why did they say that?
Because I didn't use my left hand.
Specifically, who was the person who decided to hijack?
People that live in a culture that wants to control everybody else by being constantly offended at nothing that's out there, and they live in a great country. They've accomplished nothing. They're failures. Instead of living with that, they try to find some reason that everybody else has put them down so they can justify why they are not doing as well as everybody else.
It's like they have so few problems to worry about. They have to invent their own.
Russia, Greece, Iran, Sardinia. That is like flipping somebody off. That's the middle finger. That's my point. It's arbitrary. And this can't hurt you. And that can't hurt you. Nothing can hurt unless you choose to let it. That's the power.
Nothing can hurt you. You're invincible. Jump in front of that car. Nothing will happen if you just believe.
No, the car doesn't come with words. It comes with a fender.
What if they try to flash their lights at you? Isn't that like Morse code or something? That's a word.
It is.
Same thing, right?
It is. It'd be like a semaphore, though, wouldn't it?
No, the semaphore is flags.
Okay, well, Morse code is.
Yeah, it's
so what would a
pulses.
flashy light be? Hey,
pulse.
they did have a flashlight code too. What was that called?
Oh shoot! Now you've gotten me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Wyatt's wisdom doesn't pan every dynamic.
Well, okay, I didn't think we'd be getting into semaphore signals.
Yeah, I know.
Like, who expects that in their Monday night podcast anyway?
Didn't Monty Python have a great semaphore joke, like in one of their episodes?
Yeah,
it was so funny.
Yeah.
Were they telling a joke through semaphore?
Yeah.
The joke that killed everybody, that made everybody laugh?
No. That one was just the funniest joke in the world that was written on paper.
Yeah. Okay.
And then was weaponized in World War II.
That's what I mean. I thought they saw it and then got it to the Germans or something.
No. They translated it into German and then said it in German.
You gotta love Monty Python, son. You know what else you gotta love? You gotta love people that work their hind ends off and try to make a goal of their life even when things get rough. And I get a lot of inspiration. Can you think of somebody that's been very inspirational in your life, son?
Oh, that's a good question.
Anybody that's just kind of like helped you feel that you could accomplish
things?
Oh,
someone that helped me? Oh, no.
No. Okay.
No.
But there's nobody personally that's ever kind of been a mentor to you or somebody that you really just have looked up to, has helped you, got behind you, believed in you? Nobody?
In all seriousness, David Toledo's been
David has been a great
great friend, yeah.
your drum teacher. He's been very loyal to you. He's a very good man.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I want you to know that we've had Rebecca St. James on this podcast. I don't know if you remember Rebecca. She had an Australian
I remember the
accent.
name. I remember the name.
Had an Australian accent. But she's a Smallbone. And when I say Smallbone, I don't mean as in sticks and
Is
stones.
that a derogatory?
No.
It's like in like Ireland or something?
It could. It could be if you do it.
Look at that small bone over there.
Right.
Like,
Well, anyways, why the Irish are talking with Italian dialect, I don't know.
they could be Italian.
I guess they could.
I forgot the other demographic, but they can be that. They can be like a hybrid.
Well, here's what I was wondering though. Joel and Luke Smallbone started for King and Country. Well, anyways, they had a movie out called Unsung Hero, and if you want to see the trailer to that, we have a link in the thread. Go see the trailer. We were going to show it during the broadcast. Come to find out, there's copyright. So sure enough, they give you a trailer to try to say, come watch this movie, but then you're going to get flagged by Sony or whoever did this saying, how dare you try to show our trailer on your podcast so that people go spend money and watch our movie. So whatever. Nevertheless, it's out there. Go see the movie. It's a wonderful, true story of the Smallbone family. But the man that it was about, David Smallbone, is with us, and he's the one that we have interviewed. So instead of it being the kids and what they've accomplished and so forth, it's going to be about the family, the parents, what they did, what their true story is, but you get to actually see the actual man that this was written about. Actually, Joel, who played the father, David, in the movie, who was the lead singer of King and Country, plays the man that we're about to meet. His name is David Smallbone. I've known him since I moved to Nashville. A good man. He's been a fan of mine for some reason. I didn't say he had a lot of class, didn't say he had a lot of intelligence. Huge fan of mine. That should sum it all up. But nevertheless, very accomplished, very smart, very wise, very much a committed believer, and has a great story to tell. And you're going to be inspired by it. So, hey, what the heck? While you're thinking about words and can they harm you, when you think about your left hand or what you should or shouldn't eat with, and when you're thinking about what it really means to have free speech, boy, you couldn't have art without free speech. And this music that they put out there has changed a lot of people's lives, but it didn't get there easy. And that's a story you are about to find out. So please welcome to Brad Stine Has Issues, David Smallbone. You know, on Brad Stine Has Issues, I always love having my guests on studio. Oftentimes they don't come on studio because they're lazy or they're broke and they can't afford a cab. But for those who do have the money to afford a cab and those who are just awash in cash, they show up. This particular gentleman, I don't even know what he does with all of his money. He literally has to hire a guy to teach him what to do with all the excess money he doesn't know where to spend. But nevertheless, that's why
he's so full of it.
He's so full of it. We'll find out if I'm so full of it. But it is somebody that I have known for many, many years.
Oh, yeah,
and when I first moved to Nashville, Tennessee, about 24 years ago, I stumbled across this gentleman because prior to that, I had stumbled across his daughter and had done some shows with them and also film. Anyways, through mutual friends and mentors and so forth, we kind of became friends, and his story is fascinating on so many levels, not to mention his children, who became much more famous than he'll ever even think to be. But that's because of what he decided to do once in seeking God's will in his life. And sometimes that can be really spooky, but it always ends up in an amazing journey and always in a place you belong, that you were destined to all along. But in the middle of it, it's scary as can be. So I am going to bring on someone who is part of a brand new movie that has been out now for a month or two called Unsung Hero. Please welcome the man whose this story is about, his family's about, and he's now here with us. So you have the privilege of listening to an Australian, if you can understand his accent, David Smallbone. My friend, how are you?
Well, I'm going pretty good, but when you introduce me,
Yes.
please introduce me correctly.
Okay.
The movie is about my current girlfriend,
Okay.
who has been my girlfriend for 52 years.
52 years.
Contracted for 49.
Okay.
And it's titled Unsung Hero,
Yes.
as you know. But it's not about me. It's about her. And you know what movies are like. You've done a lot of them. And in movies, you got to have a good cop and you got to have a bad cop. She's a good cop. I'm the bad cop. How could my son, who directed that movie, do that to me?
I don't know.
Comedy bloke.
I don't know.
Life's not fair.
You know what? As a man of God, you're supposed to be the leader of your family. So I think you should have chastised your son for going sideways on you instead of making you the hero.
Well, interestingly enough, so a month before we filmed, he sent the script to me and sent the script to Helen. I made a decision not to read it because you don't know this about me, comedy bloke. I'm a strong-willed guy.
Okay.
And had I read it, I would wanted to change it. So I decided not to read it. Helen read it, and she went back to Joel and Luke and said, because Joel directed, Luke produced, and said...
Oh, I didn't know he directed this. Okay.
Joel was a co-director.
That's hard to do, man, to direct and then turn around and go do the scene and then come back. That's like Clint Eastwood stuff.
But he has a gift. He has a gift with the visual and the power of A King Country. Luke starts the process. Joel finishes the process. So in writing songs, Luke starts the song. Joel finishes. In the movie, it was Luke's idea to do the movie. He would do Compassion every night at our concerts. It would always hit a nerve with the people. So we went to a movie director in Hollywood 4 years ago and said, hey, this story resonates so well.
So so when he pitches Compassion, he tells your story?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
He does. And really the story is about our family getting broken, me particularly getting broken, and then coming to America, seeing the miraculous. So now I find myself at 14, cynical of the music business, but I love the church because when I couldn't put food on the table, it was People's Church, now Church of the City. A lot of their people there put food on the table for us. And I saw the hands and feet of Jesus, and it changed me. Moved me from lukewarm Jesus perspective to a passionate Jesus perspective. And it's a weird thing. I almost feel now every man should go through what I went through. Because to see the hands and feet of Jesus, it was a life-changing moment. I so appreciate you, Brad, because, we go to the same church, we go to Conduit. Why do you say it different
What he
to me?
means is conduit, but he's Australian. So.
I'm Aussie.
Oi, oi, oi.
See, he's a comedy bloke is an honorary Australian.
Did you know that I performed one season in Melbourne?
No, I didn't.
I did. 1992. I was there for a month performing at Last Laugh in Melbourne. That was a comedy dining area. It's different. It's like food. And they had I think they called them a compere is what they call the host or the MC that we call it. And a couple of guys doing sketches. And then I performed.
Oh,
so I was in
really?
Melbourne for a whole month. And I'm not trying to get off on the weeds, but since we're talking Australia, I'm actually in discussions with a bunch of pastors in Australia that are interested in bringing me in. So I didn't even know if that was even feasible, frankly, because I don't know how churches work. American church is odd. I mean, they can bring in a comedian. They can bring in. I don't know that that's typical of churches worldwide, and I don't even. But I know when I first started in the '90s doing stand-up comedy in churches. There were churches that were hesitant. It felt irreverent or perhaps inappropriate. They had a very specific sense of what the pulpit should deliver.
Yep.
I'd let God rule this podcast, so if we end up going a little bit off the Unsung Hero, which we will be talking about, so be it. But I think that it taught me a lot about legalism. It taught me a lot about what if God has lots of ways of telling his story and to quit restricting the God of the universe into one note. Yeah. So anyways, I just was curious about, it seems as though the churches in the UK and Australia, kind of put them in the same, are still a little bit further behind in that sense of being a little bit more innovative, maybe. Or maybe it's better. Maybe they're more traditional and the church in America is losing ground, which it is, because it's become very...
It is and it isn't. I was talking to a book publisher a couple of days ago. So I spoke to a New York investment. He was interested. He then came back to me the next night and saying, oh, I've just found a story on Christian book publishing. It's saying that less people are going to church, less books are being sold. And so I did a bit of homework on it. And I found out, okay, there are some churches in decline, but like our church, like you look at our church, it's gone from 500, 2.5 years ago to 2,500.
Yeah.
You know, we've got revival going on. So there is, and so with book publishing, when I did my research on it, in 2023, it was up 8% on 22. You do have some churches in decline following COVID, but then you've got other churches where it's very, very much alive. Australia is post-Christian, as is England. But you know what? We just came back. We did a concert tour down there for King Country, did a concert tour down there 2 months ago. And I was so encouraged by the people because it is not a religious country. And I remember a lady writing to me, I wish I could find it, but it'll be too hard to find, but she wrote and said, I so love it that the King Country are strong about Jesus, they're strong about babies, they're strong about mums, they're strong about dads, they're strong about families. Over here, because you and I live in the Bible Belt, we take it for granted. I see some things pretty clearly because I come from post-Christian Australia. And one of my things to anyone who's prepared to listen, let's get revival going on in America because if we don't, there's a chance America could fall because we got some bad actors in government at the moment. And my challenge to myself, my family, anyone who's prepared to listen, we need to be louder about Jesus than ever in our history. And I want to say to you, I so appreciate you remaining faithful. Because as I said to you before we recorded, what happens in our entertainment industry, we don't stay the same. We either get weaker or stronger. And a lot of our people over the years have got weaker. They getting this balance between ministry and business very difficult. And they see the business taking over. Yeah. And I think you and I, and anyone who's prepared to listen, we have a responsibility to be loud about the Jesus perspective. Because my understanding of life is if we get the ministry right, the money's going to be there. The business is going to follow. And you and I have both had wonderful lives. Seeing your daughter tell her story at church when she got baptized some time ago, I've told you this more than once. I went up to you after that service. It touched me in a very deep place because she was very transparent. Life changed. Yeah. Jesus changed her.
And I know, and I'm sure this will show up as we discuss your story that ended up being a great movie. I kind of didn't have any option. You talk about kind of trying to be true to my faith. I got to be honest, and maybe it's not necessarily the most Christianese way to frame it, but to me, a lot of it is fear and trembling. I take this serious. God is real, and I'm going to face him someday. I lost my career, my mainstream career, when I said I'm a Christian conservative. And I said it because I felt like nobody else would. Certainly not in comedy field, but oftentimes even in the mainstream field. And some people supposedly were Christians or had that background, especially here in Nashville, the country folks. A lot of them grew up with a Christian heritage, but they abandon it, or at least they keep it on the down low so they can make money. I mean, I don't know that you're necessarily supposed to be saying Jesus every time you hit the stage as a country singer or something, you know, or if you're a mechanic. If you hide it to where it becomes almost a private philosophy, I don't know that it has any value. I don't know if that's the purpose of Christianity. You're told to make disciples. You were supposed to be a disciplined human being whose life was changed forever. You saw things differently. You acted differently. You spoke differently. You behaved differently. You repented where you failed. You exposed yourself when you were vulnerable. You showed what it meant to be a Christ follower. And you even looked at the Bible. What I love about Christianity, one of the many things, is that it's self-correcting. The very thing that people say, you Christians are hypocrites. I said, I know, Bible says so. You Christians are all judgmental. I know, Bible says so. It also says how to stop doing that. It tells us everything. We're fraud, we're sinners, we're failures, but God saved us. We're now seen as perfect. And then we spend the rest of our lives trying to catch up.
And we also believe in forgiveness.
Yes.
And you look at, you know, some of the wars going on internationally at the moment, go to the foundation of those wars. Both sides don't necessarily believe in. I love that. I was back in Australia. We showed the movie at a radio conference down there. A buddy of mine came up to me afterwards and said, Smallbone, how do you forgive? Because he'd had a major ministry in Australia. It fell over, and he had a couple of his board members who crucified him at some level, and he got hurt in that process. And I'm not sure he's in church anymore. But you know what the crazy thing is? I was rejected by a lot of people. You know, the movie shows that. But they all gave me a gift because it pointed me in a different direction. It pointed me, I wanted to work for different people when I came to town 32 years ago. I was viewed as a failure, so a lot of people didn't want to work with me. But then when Rebecca's career started, it allowed me to focus on her. And so all my time wasn't taken up by taking care of other artists who'd had some success. And I've been able to do that with both Rebecca and for King and Country. And it's been a wonderful experience.
When you have children, and I have two, you have how many?
7.
7.
Perfect number. You've got 5 to go.
I know. I'm going to let my daughter fill in the blanks.
She has. She's given you 5.
Yes. Well, one's in the oven as we speak. And this is maybe the cart before the horse, because I'm sure it shows up in your story. And I want to get more deep into that because it'll be great to hear it from the horse's mouth. When you have kids, they're just your children. They're just your kids. And you're hoping that they're good citizens and that they don't go sideways and that they believe in the God that you believe in and that they are good people and trying to raise them right. And they have their problems and their flaws and they all are different. You raise them, you're the same parents raising the same kids, but they're different and they have different ways to be motivated, or some of them are just more obedient and others are more ready to, go the prodigal journey. I mean, you know what it is. You have a unique experience in that a handful of your kids became very successful in the performance arts, which is a dangerous place to get successful in.
Yep.
A lot of money, but boy, can it make you seek the dark side, because I think the dark side loves the entertainment industry because it's a communicative form of telling a story, and he wants to have access to that. So many people sell out, you know how it is. What does it feel like when your kids, who you know inside and out, who they are, as opposed to the persona that's created, and that doesn't mean it's even false, but it's also kind of a magnified, simplistic view of their character, because you see them for an hour and a half or 2 hours singing and telling a couple anecdotes and reading a little book and watching a few interviews, and that to you is them. It's like, well, wait a minute, they got a whole more of their life that has problems and challenges. And Rebecca was at the top of her game. She was one of the, if not the top Christian singer, at least in the 90s, I'm thinking, is when we first ran into each other. And then King and Country, holy crap. Sheesh. When I saw them on The Tonight Show, I almost cried.
Oh, really?
Well, because I was so proud that believers were in the top dog of the mainstream, as it at least was, the Tonight Show. And by the way, they killed it. They killed it on that live performance. But I was so proud because they were honest about their faith and yet were presenting it to the world in a mainstream view, unapologetic, but they allowed that moment, their witness was their craft. Look how good this can look from Christians. So what does it feel like to be the father and watch your kids, and they almost take on a different life than the one that you were comfortable with, that you could control? It's kind of like they got their own kind of thing going now. They could kind of find somebody. I'm sure there's other people coming in going, hey, I'd like to run this show. Your dad was good, but he's your dad. I'm with CAA. I'm with, Live Nation, whatever. And they're saying, you might want to do whatever. What is that journey like as the father watching this thing kind of get out of control, maybe in a good way, beyond what you could have imagined? Nobody can imagine what you ended up getting with, right? You'd hope, but when it happens, do you find yourself going, wow, well, what have we gotten ourselves into?
Humbling, but it's all been about hard work. I remember Dan Brock over at Forefront Records 2 years after we released Rebecca's first album 30 years ago. And I think he was a bit unsure whether it was going to work. He came to me and said, Smallbone, this thing is starting to work. And I think it's because you're out on the road working so hard. And so we, as you know, we toured at a very high level. And I remember Bill Hearn, who was running Capitol there until he passed away. He was very good what he did. And he remarked about the strong work ethic. And I think coming over here penniless, we as a family, so initially when we did all the things Americans don't want to do. We mowed lawns and cleaned houses. And then 2 years after that, 30 years ago, Rebecca's career started. So what we ended up doing is taking the whole family on the road. And so that's how Joel and Luke and my other sons learnt the crafts of being production support, how to write a song, how to perform. I think Joel was 12 when we first put him on stage. And I remember we rehearsed for a couple of weeks before he went on stage. And then remember on the day, this is Joel and for King Country, on the day he was to perform, I said, okay, now's your day to get up. And he started crying, says, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. I said, no, you're going to do it. You know Joel. Yeah. Now he enjoys the stage. Living in poverty for the whole family encouraged a strong work ethic. For the first 2 years we were in America, most weeks we didn't know how we're going to put food on the table. And so
let's talk about that. But since we're here, we'll get back to where we were going, because we're going to end up in the career that has become this juggernaut into this movie. So let's just tell the story. So you were in Australia. You were a Christian man in Australia, right? And is that rare, or you said?
Yeah, we were generally the only people in our street going to church. It was shocking when we first came to America. We lived just down the road from where we are now in Brentwood. A neighbor came to us and said, hey, I want to invite you to our church. That would never happen in Australia.
Right. Now, that was the Satanic Church. He didn't see that coming. That was...
No, she was just a lovely lady. And I still remember our neighbors putting food on the table, leaving boxes of food at the back door. And
wow.
Incredibly humbling experience, but incredibly wonderful experience, because we saw God's community in act. And not everybody sees that. And it's almost like now at 14, I want to encourage every man to go through what I went through, because it was that moment that moved me from lukewarm to passionate.
I am convinced if you are serious about becoming a follower of Christ, part of the initiation.
I don't think I was that serious. I think I got it. I worked in mainstream music in Australia, and I got into Christian music because I wanted to do something purposeful. When I'd sit down with people, I wouldn't talk about Jesus. Now, I sit down with somebody.
Jesus is coming up.
I made a decision 16 years ago, after being in America for 16 years, because I realized that Christian music, we'd kind of lost the plot. We were in show business more so than the ministry. So I made a decision to read a devotion at every meeting I took. And with some people, because not everybody I meet is a Christian.
You mean with the person you're meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Whether they want it or not. And I had a neighbor of mine.
That's bold, my friend.
I had a neighbor of mine get really upset with me. And so I go and have the meeting with him, and I find out a week later, he's real upset with me because he thought I was trying to evangelize him. Mm. And I said, okay, well, if you thought that, let's go and have a coffee together. And you explain why you're an atheist, and I'll explain why I'm a Christian. And so we're still good friends. And then I had one of the biggest attorneys in town, used to be Madonna's attorney. I remember he did our deal for King Country with Warner Brothers at the time. He didn't really believe in the band, but he still did our deal. He's one of the best deal makers in town. And so I sit down with him to say thank you. And I read a devotion. And one of the toughest guys in town melts in front of me. And it's the power. You know, what happened to me when I embraced Jesus fully, I was challenged to give my life away. I think previously I'd given half of my life away. And I'm still a piece of work. I'm a bit like you, Comedy Bloke. You know, we're both pieces of work because we know each other pretty well. We're serious about Jesus, but both of us have strong idiosyncrasies. I talked to somebody yesterday, I've forgotten who it was, and down at McGovic's coffee shop, the spiritual epicenter of Franklin, I was saying, here I am at 14, incredibly grateful. And I said, there's two people who make me cry. Jesus makes me cry because he challenged me to give my life away. And my wife makes me cry because she's loved me unconditionally. And I have friends who don't have that. I talk to my friends every day. I talk to one of my friends on the way here. And I'm thinking to myself, I've been a spoiled rich kid most of my life. And I was really, because I'd lived the dream. Wonderful parents, married a wonderful lady, took it all for granted until at 40, I had everything taken away. This is something you don't know. I helped start the Hillsong record label. And on my 40th birthday, they called me up and said, we don't want you anymore. Mm. And I had the total contradictions on that day. So, a label that I'd started 37 years ago and had managed for the first 3 years, they said no to me. And then at lunchtime that day, Helen had arranged a surprise 40th birthday party. So all my friends from all over Australia turned up. We had a really big barn, and they'd hit all the cars in the barn. I arrive home, and I walk into 40 or 50 of my best friends wishing me a happy birthday. It just blew. So that's been my life, buddy. The incredible extremes. But I come to you, Comedy Bloke, very grateful.
Well, but I guess where I was going with,
which I didn't answer, but
no. Well,
I am of increased vintage. I'm even older than you, Comedy Bloke.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm older than I look. I think sometimes you find your space in your journey, in what I'm about to say. There comes a point, and maybe God sometimes drags you there. But when you come to a place where you say, okay, I'm all in, there's a dark night of the soul. That's not what you expect. You expect it to be this revelation where you're put into this utopia. I accept you, Jesus. Whoa, this is what I believe. Everything comes true. It's the Christian movies. All the touchdown is always made. The cancer is always healed. The relationship always restored. That's not true. Psalms is filled with, where are you?
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing? I thought I was... So I'm serving you. I'm not attacking the king, that he's your anointed, and you're leaving me hanging. What kind of a God are you? I love that God is that honest with us, because we need to see the truth of the challenge and the difficulty of this, because you're going to have it. So don't be blindsided by it.
Don't you think that's what Unsung Hero is all about, the movie? Because over a 2-week period, 34 years ago, I had everything taken away. I had a really nice house, just like you. You got a really nice house in one of the nice suburbs of Nashville. I had a really nice house on land on one of the nicest suburbs in Sydney, all taken away in a 2-week period. Now, I look back, the gist of your question is, okay, how do you handle when everything falls apart? And I think I handled it because when I was broken and I was very low in spirit, my wife still loved me. She didn't criticize me. Had she criticized me, I would have had a nervous breakdown. And also what we did, as a family, we would pray regularly. Lord, give us food. I remember Joel praying at 8. What's he, 40 now? That's 32 years ago. In our furnitureless lounge room here in Brentwood, no furniture, praying, Jesus, please put food on the table. Please help us survive. Please give us a car. I think that was my Paul moment. When Paul moved from being a negative person to Jesus to being one of the greatest apologists of all time. I wasn't negative, but I wasn't passionate. I think we're all put through hard times. And if anyone's watching this and you're going through a hard time, my encouragement is you're being challenged to go deeper in Jesus, as I was. And I don't want to go through it again. Yeah. But I look back and say, thank you, Jesus. And I had one of the guys who was involved in when we lost everything, because we went and asked for a discount on that tour. And they said, no, I'm not going to give you a discount. He knew the movie was coming out, and I'd heard on the street here in Nashville, he had buyer's remorse. And when I heard that, I called him up and said, buddy, you don't need to worry about that. You gave me a gift. Had you given me the money back, or had your associates given me the money back?
Is this for the initial tour that collapsed in Australia? Okay. So we need to talk about that so they understand the context. Not everybody's, believe it or not everybody's seen your movie.
What?
I know. And they're going
Comedy
to. They're going to now.
Can we end the movie now? Can we end this?
Why? Don't let him. Don't let him forget that he wanted to talk about this.
It's all over, buddy. I'm leaving now. I'm going to be egocentric like your dad.
So here's what happened. You live in Australia. You're kind of a nominal Christian in your own definition.
Well, I'm working in Christian music, but I'm not.
As a revenue stream or as a ideological desire?
It was purposeful. I think you and I know, what happens in our business. We end up being in the business, we're not in the ministry. So I wouldn't be talking to my friends about Jesus. I would be in the Bible study, I'd be in church, but I wasn't off stage or whatever. I wasn't passionate about living the life. I was faithful to my wife. We had 7 kids and all that type of stuff. But I was in the show business. Yeah. I wasn't in the ministry. I look back on the story that shows up in Unsung Hero. My family was put through all that for me to grow. And I had everything taken away. As I said earlier, I was a spoiled rich kid. I had a wonderful, wonderful life. I work mainstream radio, I work mainstream TV, mainstream record label in our business, and it helps me now as an artist development guy. So I'd seen it all. Most people in Christian music, they haven't worked mainstream, they just work Christian music.
Yeah.
And so they don't see the bigger picture. So I was given the gift of seeing the bigger picture. I go through all that. I want to do something purposeful. Off camera, I was promoting all these artists, but I didn't have that passion to encourage my brothers and sisters to live the life. And I was kind of living the life, but my passion was more or less survival, not sharing the most wonderful message known to man. One thing I need to tell you is our core principles with For King Country are loving on the brokenhearted and sharing the most wonderful message known to man to as many people as possible. So we try and impact the church, and we try and go wider than the church. We talk about that regularly. We've got a movie coming out at Christmas time, our Christmas concert, going to be showing in theaters. And I had a meeting the other day with all our team, and I thought it was going to be good. Didn't think it was going to be great. It's great. I was shocked. And after it was all over, I wasn't supposed to speak. I got up there and said, guys, this is great here. This goes back to our core principles. It shares a hope in Jesus. We need to be big picture. We need to make sure as many people know about this movie. We also need to make sure we get into all the nooks and crannies. So that passion has come from brokenness. And so your question's a good one. Anyone who's going through that broken moment, this is a growth moment for you, as it was for me. And
But David, it's usually the only way you can grow. You're not going to choose darkness.
But
You're
some people go weaker and they become deconstructionists.
They quit.
Or
you mean heretics?
No, I'm not going to say that. But comedy bloke can say that. But I always take great encouragement from the disciples when the pressure is on. Oh, we don't know that Jesus. And so, and even for David, me having David being my name, a man after God's own heart, not Mr. Perfection.
No.
There's hope for us.
Yeah.
And so when I see those pastors, a couple of pastors had some problems down in Dallas recently, and the media comes after them. They have to leave the church and all that. And then I go back to biblical truth, which we referred to a couple of times here. Bible stories give me hope, buddy, because other than Jesus and even Noah, were you at church the other Sunday when Darren did the message on alcohol? And Noah getting plastered when he was 600.
I think I was in my closet praying for your soul.
I need to tell you, no more alcohol for no more alcohol. Do I get an amen, Wyatt? No more alcohol for Wyatt Black. You need to go and watch that. Darren Tyler. I said to Darren, because most pastors aren't going to do a message on alcohol because some of their people like their alcohol in church, some of their people don't. It's polarizing. For our pastor, Darren Tyler, to be strong about that. Will you promise me to watch that comedy bloke?
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. Well,
he's going deeper with Jesus. What do you think, buddy?
So you were a promoter in Australia. We have to keep coming back to the story that never gets told so people can follow along if they haven't seen Unsung Hero, which they're going to see.
You get me distracted, comedy bloke. You go off on tangents.
No, but it's all. I think David means tangent in Australian. You were promoting a concert. Was this in the 80s?
It was 34 years ago, so it would have been either 1990, I think.
Okay. It's not a failure if people listen. There's no more roll of a dice than to promote a concert. You've got.
You know that better than
that's
most.
Like a movie maker. It's like if you're going into a movie because you have a story you want to tell and you want to invest in that. God bless you. If you're doing it because you think you're going to get rich,
why are you doing a movie at the end of the year? Come on.
Well, because it's a beautiful story that I want to tell, and the truth is,
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
The truth is, and you'll like it, by the way. What happened to you in a nutshell was you were a promoter, you were fairly successful, you had an income, you were doing well in the Christian industry. I guess your kids weren't even singing yet, right? They were too young. They weren't really doing any. So did you even know that they
Rebecca was 12 at the time.
But
Daniel
did
was
you
10.
even know they were going to be artists?
No.
That wasn't even in the thought process of how the Smallbone world was going to go. You'd already figured it out. I promote. I am a radio. I got some dough coming in. I'm working for Christians. I'm doing the right thing. And you brought a concert in, and it tanked.
Yeah, I lost $250,000.
Okay, so, and that was everything you had.
And that, in the process, I lost the house.
And you lost it because a promoter has to guarantee fees and honorariums and or however you want to frame it to sound spiritual when you're paying people. They didn't give you any grace. And saying
That's a nice way of putting it.
well, and they don't necessarily owe it to you. This was the deal.
They were right. We had a legal agreement.
Yeah.
I budgeted for 25,000 people on that tour. 15,000 people turned up. So I was 10,000 people off. So I budgeted 25,000 to break even. So that's how I lost $250,000.
Okay.
And 34 years ago, it was a lot more than what it is now.
But here's the crazy thing. So you kind of go bankrupt, or at least I guess. And so you thought, okay, I'm in my home country. I'm in my sphere of influence. I know all the folks here. I know this game. I know how to play the radio thing. I know how to do promotion. When this one failed, but that happens. So it's time to dust off and try to start over. And of course, the best way to do that is to leave your country and to go to another country, which is the brass ring of making it in the entertainment is if you can make it in America. I don't know if it's still that way, but that was at one point. You don't make it here. I mean, the Beatles basically said, we're not going to tour or something until we make it in America or have a hit. No, we're not coming to America until we have a hit in America, because they realized we don't really care about how big you are in Sussex or whatever, because we have so much to choose from. It's a big country with a lot of talented folks. And you came here. So you must have had some relationships here. It couldn't have just been tabula rasa.
I went to, so when I went to Helen and said, hey, babe, I think the only way we get ahead is go to America. And she came back and said, we'll go for 2 years. 32 years later, we're still here. But she did say at the same time.
So she's either not good at math or she is really good at having faith in you. And
well, she still loves her current boyfriend. So I'm grateful. So we did go to one artist who I toured very successfully in Australia and said, hey, can you, what about me coming and managing you in America like I've managed you in Australia? This particular artist, he and his wife say, yes, you come over. So I worked for him for 2 months.
These were Australians, though.
No, this is in America. So I come to America to work for this artist.
Okay.
That's part of the reason we came over.
I see.
And
I was trying to figure out how you got here. Like, what would give you any sense that this would make sense?
I was going to work for Carmen. And then just before I left Australia, some churches over there who'd been part of a tour that we did a bit of gossiping on me. And he got cold feet. And he called me up and said, I don't want you anymore. But he'd bought the airfares. And so I said, Carmen, that's the deposit. I'm not going to give the airfares back. He wanted the airfares back, but I kept them. That's how we got over here. And then I went to this other artist and said, hey, can I manage you? And he said, yes. We get here. I manage him for 2 months. He lets me go. And that's when that was our journey into living in poverty, which I kind of recommend because you see the wonder of the church. You see the wonder of church. And I think what happens to a lot of people, life is too successful. Life just goes just like it did for me in Australia. I had a pretty normal life. I lived in the nicest suburb in Sydney, had my kids in a good Christian school. Everything was going along fine. And then bang, after 2 weeks, it was taken away. And it was an incredible experience. But, going back to what I said before, if you're going through those hard times, this is a growth moment. Go forwards, don't go backwards. Because some people give up on God. They give up on Jesus. My encouragement is, and there's a chance I could have done that if I didn't have my wife's support. But together as a family, we bonded together when the going was tough. And then with Rebecca, the family traveled the world. We'd tour Europe once or twice a year. I'd take all the family over there. And so that's how Joel and Luke learned the art of doing music. And
I remember running into them in a green room when Rebecca was touring, and they were, I guess they backed her, right?
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Joel did backup singing, and Luke did the lights.
So I remember kind of running into her when she was at her heyday. Suddenly you have a daughter who's mowing lawns, or whatever you guys were doing, and
well, she was babysitting and cleaning houses.
Okay, so she's doing that. So you guys are all sort of entrepreneurs figuring out your own way to pay for the challenge of living in the United States.
All hands on deck.
Okay, and that's okay. That's how it should be.
Was it good?
Well, there's nobody promises you anything. Nobody says you are owed anything. I mean, that used to be the puritanical work ethic. You got to figure it out, and it's not given to you. Even in the garden, right? When God said, here you go, before the fall, he said, now go tend to the garden. You had to work. even before sin. It's like you're supposed to participate in this thing. I mean, he didn't make him a hammock after he created the garden. He said, get to work. So it's okay to do that, and it's probably important that you participate in the universe that he's created us for us to do. Somewhere along the line, a guy who's in the entertainment business, who managed artists and singers, I'm guessing, and we're in radio, so that's definitely singers, didn't know that maybe my daughter can sing. I mean, how did you stumble, or at least not be maybe thinking, because you were in that world, hey, let's see if my kids, let's all sing together. I don't, maybe you did. Maybe you all sang together and you go, oh, she's not bad.
Yeah.
But come on.
It's a good story. Well, what happened is, so we lose everything on that tour. And about 6 months after that, I realized we've got to sell the house. So we start selling the house. We move up to Brisbane. So the kids go to a Christian school. Rebecca, who was 13 at the time, auditions for the Christian rock band at the school and gets in. All the other kids in the band are 14. So that got my attention. And then she starts doing it. She does it well. And so I think, oh, okay, I'm probably, maybe I'll do some recording with her. And so we go.
But you had no indication she could sing? She just decided out of the blue, I'm going to try out for this band over there. And you didn't even know up to then. It's not like she sat around the house singing or writing songs or trying to.
No.
So you literally didn't even know you said, oh, good for you, sweetheart.
No, it was somebody, it was somebody else. And then the music director at the school, he would record with her. And so I heard some of those recordings. And so I thought, okay, what about we consider making a record with her? Carmen was coming over for that tour. And he said he liked Rebecca. And he said, oh, can Rebecca come on as my support act? Because an American touring in Australia needed to have an Australian support act. So that was her first tour. And that happened 35 years ago. Oh, wow, she was only 12, 13 at the time. And so that was the start.
It's just interesting that somebody who was in the business didn't even know that his own lineage perhaps could participate in this.
Well, I think there's something naturally in us. You don't necessarily want to get into business with your own family.
Yeah.
We got into business together. You made a comment earlier about the King Country, other people coming after them, other major managers, other major booking agencies. Well, I owned a third of the King Country. So if they want to get rid of me, they got to buy me out.
You still get a piece of the action. That's what I'm talking. A little indentured servitude for your children. You get a piece of it. Well, and so she went on, obviously became very successful. Suddenly, is that kind of the dramatic conclusion to this story of the difficulty, losing everything? We're working as a family. We're literally doing day labor to survive. Yep. People are leaving food. That's either seen as demeaning and embarrassing, or, like you keep saying it, no, this is beautiful because this is what the body's supposed to do. Which, by the way, not everybody has that story. Where's all the Christians? I'm in trouble. Nobody's helping me, right?
But you've got to be in church. I was talking to somebody the other day. A family has just come over from Australia, and I think they've got 5 kids. I think maybe another one coming. We sat down with them. We gave them a gift. I said, the most important thing is to be in church. And so we were in church for the first week because there's something in the Christian community where people know. You mentioned about people leaving groceries on the front step and stuff like that, and it being demeaning. I still remember what had happened. There's a producer in town who by the name of Greg Nelson. He used to produce Sandy Patty and Steve Green and others. Very successful. And we had been friends for a while. And so when we arrive, we go out one night to have coffee. And as he comes back to the house, he picks us up, takes us back to the house, and he has to go to the bathroom, goes in, sees that we got no furniture. He then goes, that next week, he goes to his Sunday school class at Brentwood Baptist, say, hey, I know a new family in town. They haven't got any furniture. Let's, as a Sunday school class, we didn't ask, but as a Sunday school class, we'll put furniture into that house. 2 weeks later, 2 trucks turn up, furnished our house. I still remember being in the hallway as all that furniture came in. Very humbling moment, but very wonderful moment. And you know what the lesson out of that moment was and is that now when we can help people, we do that. I'm leaving here. A buddy of mine is the superintendent of schools down at Memphis. A week ago, he found out he's got a melanoma. My mother-in-law passed away from melanoma, life-threatening. So I'm going down to see him after this podcast, and it's a surprise to him because it's a 3-hour drive down there. But I believe it's emotional for me to say this, but out of the church, the Christian community, being so generous to us, it changed us all. And now, even that core principle that we have with both Rebecca and King Country, loving on the brokenhearted, that is very, very important to me. So what I do with the King Country, I watch their socials very closely. I'm always wanting to learn. And when I see someone who is attempting to commit suicide, we had a song called God Only Knows, which Dolly Parton was on a number of years ago, and the number of people who come to us and say, I was considering suicide, heard that song, decided not to. That encourages me to keep on going, because I'm 14, 9 years over the normal retirement age. I go to my wife every now and then and say, hey baby, when my sons vote me out on an important issue, oh, it's time for me to retire. And she says, no, you can't retire, old bloke. The most productive years in your life are in your 60s, so you're incredibly productive, bro. Second most productive are in your 70s, and the third most productive are in your 50s. So my current girlfriend is not allowing me to retire, comedy bloke. What do I do about that?
No, there's nothing you can do about it, because they're relentless, these women. They want their pots and pans and their, little shoes and that they don't wear, but at least they're in the closet and they can stare at them. Well, you know what?
Anyone think you do comedy for a business?
I don't.
Is it a business or... Let's turn the tables here.
Yeah.
Comedy bloke,
Yes.
Is it a business or is it a ministry?
It's ministry now.
Darren Tyler is watching this. Darren, he just said it's a ministry.
Yes.
Your ministry is working. Hallelujah.
Amen. He's been on here too. He was one of the warrior pastors. I had a warrior pastor series of bringing pastors on who didn't shut down during Corona. And I said, I want to find out where they are, because those are the churches that blew up. And that's what happened for Darren. I mean, for Conduit, is with those guys who said, I'm not doing this, exploded, and all the cowards and all. And yes, I'm going to say what needs to be said. When you allow this federal government, a secular institution, to look at you in the face and say your church is unessential, I say, I'm not just opening the doors, I'm ripping them off the hinges. How dare you? How dare you tell me that we're not the most essential place when the very room that we inhabit is called sanctuary? No. We'll be wide open.
Well, just do it in love, comedy bloke. Just
do it. Well, do it in love. But guess what, David? Sometimes love is disciplined. Sometimes love is stern. Sometimes love is exposing cowardice. Sometimes love is holding people accountable so they can become better. Was it love when God Almighty took everything you had? That doesn't seem very loving, does it?
It didn't seem like love.
No, it doesn't seem.
But I think he wanted for my best. I had a thought that I wanted to lead on. So on my way here, I'm communicating with one of Trump's people who works with him, and Trump had just blown up Governor Lee, which he shouldn't have done. I wrote to him and I said, hey, you got to make sure your boss guy, I called him the boss, got to make sure your boss, he gets a bit nicer with some of these people, because he can't go after everybody, because Lee is one of us. He's on our same page. And as you know, Darren loves Governor Lee. We're pro-life guy. You look at Tennessee, one of the great states in America to live in. And part of it is we've got the Bible Belt here. That's why all the Californians want to come here, because it's such a beautiful place. But my challenge to you, as it was to Trump's bloke, is we've got to be strong, but we've got to be loving in how we do it.
Yeah.
Not easy. Not easy.
I want you to be aware of what I mean by that. I don't mean to be frivolous or, out of control or careless. I don't mean it like that. But I believe that if people aren't called to task on things that they do that are unscriptural or are damaging or harmful or a misrepresentation, because, we have a beautiful Jesus. We have an empathetic Jesus. We have a forgiving Jesus. We have a tender Jesus. We have a sweet Jesus. We have a kind Jesus. We have a gentle Jesus. Wonderful necessary pieces of the puzzle of the living God who dimensionalized himself and became part of this experience so we could literally touch God. Because we can't touch God. He's transcendent. So the only way we can do it is become like us. And those are parts of Jesus that are necessary. And when we're in those dark spaces, we need that guy. Because it's a feminine element of Jesus. Where's table tipping Jesus? Where is generation of vipers Jesus? Where is the whitewashed tomb Jesus? Where is that get behind me Satan Jesus? That guy was there too. And apparently it was necessary, usually saved for the religious. So that we're talking about legalism, dogmatic, judgmental, self-righteous, arrogant. But he didn't, his love was to say the only way I can expose where you are to give you a shot at repentance is to let you know where you're at. And this ain't going to be easy. This is going to be a tooth extraction. Oh, yeah. And so when you lost everything, that was God's megaphone. Isn't that what C.S. Lewis said, that pain is God's megaphone to the world? So you wanted, maybe you didn't know it, but you wanted to be closer to Christ. You wanted to be as deep as you could get. And what you didn't know was, he said, oh, I'll give you that. Here's how you're going to get there. And had you known that, you'd say, is there another cup I can drink from? Think about that. God Almighty, whose entire purpose, David, was to die for us. That's why he was here. And at that moment of truth, he even said, is there another way? And then when he was on the cross, why have you forsaken me? I'm grateful for those two moments because it reminds me it's okay when we don't know where he is to say, I don't know where you are and I'm scared. I don't know what to do. But what I've learned about the dark space, because I had my own dark night of the soul, I had my own journey into the darkness. And I said, what I learned about the dark spot, David, is...
How long was this dark spot?
A couple of years. But there was a moment when some issues had taken place in my career that had kind of caused people to be afraid of me and be concerned about me. Part of what, because I stand up for things that I do, and there's so much cowardly Christian in America that they fear anything that holds people accountable to things or causes them to see that maybe they're falling short. But it could also be my own arrogance, my own misunderstanding.
You're not a naturally arrogant person.
No, maybe not, but it can certainly, in show business, it's a ripe field for creating arrogance and self-righteousness. Oh, yeah. Because everybody tells you how great you are. And you're not.
Yeah, that's true.
You can sing really good. So what? Yeah. So you can make people laugh. So what? In the long run, what people really want is to laugh or to eat. Yep. To laugh or to have a roof over their head so they're not rained on. So in the long run, we're not really that important. Nothing, David, became more disheartening to me. When I moved to Nashville 24 years ago, I figured all the Christian artists were kind of like together and we hung out with each other and we encouraged each other because we knew what it was like to be in show business, which has its own oddness. But we're believers, right? And we are in different flavors. I'm a comic and you're a singer and you're a soloist and you're in a band and you do this and you're a magician and you juggle and whatever they are. And I found out, I came out of California. I was one of those guys who fled. I found out that there is a lot of people in this industry who are Hollywood you, who are a little arrogant about, they take themselves seriously because they're really famous in their little subculture of Christian entertainment. And it makes me, nothing bugs me more than people who are more, see themselves as more important than they are. But I had to be brought to my face to say, and by the way, Brad, you're not so big either. Just so you understand, you're in the same boat. Yeah. And so I think when I learned about the darkness was this, I wanted God to stand still so I could grab him and say, help me endure this. And he kept moving. I said, you are mean and you are insensitive and you are not the father I would be because I need you to stand still so I can grab on and hang on for dear life because this sucks. And he said, I'm moving. I said, what's going on? He said, because you want to endure this. I want you out. I'm going to be moving until you have to follow me because I know where the light is and you want to stay in the darkness and just make it through. I'm not going to put you there. I love you. You're getting out of here, but you're going to have to follow me. It's going to hurt. That's what I learned. And so, your sons have blown up. Your daughter blew up. Wonderful people, by the way. God bless you. Kudos to you. They are honorable. They're the actual real thing that they project from the stage. They are actually that character. They actually have that virtue. That is rare. It's easy to fake it. It's easy to pretend because it's a game that we know how to play and how to market and how to social media and what to say from stage and how to use Christianese. We know how to do all the game. It's not complicated, but to be that, it's the hardest, most rewarding journey you'll ever have is try to become a disciple for Jesus Christ. It's not easy to do, but it's everything.
It is. And I'm glad with your winter season you got stronger because you
I had nowhere else to go, David. Where am I going to go? Quit? Give up?
Yeah. Well, some people do. Well, I just ran into somebody yesterday who had a son who was Christian and had suicided earlier this year. And but I think our message to anyone who wants to hear, because we've both had similar but very different experiences, is we both had the opportunity to go deeper and to be committed to following in the game of life what you and I have stumbled over.
Obviously, if everything you're doing, it's all about the story, which is Christ. And many listening on Spotify and Salem and all the places that this is heard only audio. You can look at them for a second, and so they're looking at you. What do you have to complain about? Your kids have one of the biggest touring bands in the world. Your daughter was famous. Obviously, you're making a lot of dough now. Yeah, it's easy to talk about what you came through as opposed to where you are, because I'm stuck. So tell them what you need to tell them. Why does David Smallbone exist? Because they're in darkness and they need a way out.
My encouragement is to go deeper. Part of that is being involved with the church. We need to be fed good food. What I have in my life is 7 accountability partners. We talk about everything. We talk about the dark side. We talk about temptation. We talk about marriage. Talk about our kids. Talk about business. Talking about getting a balance between ministry and business. And my encouragement, if you're unsure, and this is what I said I was talking to my sons, I don't know, either earlier this year or into last year, we had a hard decision to make. And I said, let's look for the Jesus answer. The interesting thing about the Jesus answer is it's a long-term answer. What happens in Christian music business, which I'm part of, we're controlled by the corporations. We're controlled by Universal and Sony in the main. And they're looking for quarterly profit. And so they're wanting immediate gratification. I don't believe that's the way to live. And so be careful who you hang with. We are who we hang with. If you're hanging with the wrong crowd, find some good people to have community with. And then if people are going down a different road, talk to them about Jesus. I realized 16 years ago, after being in town for 32 years, that Christian music business side was somewhat spiritually bankrupt. And I thought, what can I do about it? And so I made a decision at that time, every meeting I took, I would share a devotional. And with some people who don't have our values, it's pretty interesting. So my encouragement is on every meeting you take, find a way of talking about Jesus. I'll finish with this thought. My wife came to me at the beginning of COVID and said, David, I want to start praying with you together every night. When we first got married 49 years ago, we did pray together every night, and I'd go to sleep. That offended her. So we stopped doing that. And then at the beginning of 2020, she comes to me and says, David, let's start praying every night. So I prayed last night. She prayed the night before. She'll pray tonight. And we go through all our family. We go through all our friends who've got health problems. We go through our relatives. There's some relatives who are separated at the moment. We pray for them. You know what the crazy thing about that daily discipline, I said to somebody yesterday, I said, I think I'm more in love, I'm more grateful at 74 than I've ever been in my life, having been married for 49 years. Not all my friends can say that. And I think that one of the things that has happened in the last 4.5 years is that prayer time that we do together every night, which wasn't my idea, it was her idea. Because if there's ever any tension in our relationship, and it's not on big stuff, it's on silly little stuff. I forgot to call her when I was out, meeting went late or whatever, or I didn't take out the garbage. But little things can end up being big things if they're not put behind us. But it's that prayer time that is is daily therapy. You and your beloved are not doing that. I would encourage you to do that. I'm so honored to be with Comedy Bloke, hold him in high regard. We've done a lot of life together. We've done movies together. And the fact that we together are involved in sharing the most wonderful message known to man, it doesn't get any better. Godspeed, honored to be with you and Kingdom Bloke and his strong-willed son today.
You're familiar with Rebecca St. James. If you're an old school Christian music lover, you certainly are familiar with King and Country and should be. Go see them live. It's an unbelievable live show. But they weren't that way because they stumbled into it, because their father lived the life that he neglects to realize it was in fact discipline and was in fact legitimate, maybe not where you wanted to be initially, but that's the journey anyways. We're working it out with fear and trembling. It literally says you get saved and then you spend the rest of your life trying to get better at it. But you did it well, and you should be grateful for that, and it's okay to get an
Well, Comedy Bloke, I am a flawed Jesus follower. You and I are both pieces of work. We're both pretty interesting, but thank you for your kind words about three of my love children.
Well, and well done. He's going to sign these, and we're going to probably auction them off for those who want to see this in DVD or a CD or even.
He's comedic, folks.
And this is your girlfriend.
My girlfriend.
There's your girlfriend right there. That's a book.
It's quite different, but if you're intrigued by the movie, that's a good book to get. It's titled Behind the Lights.
Well, folks, listen, whatever your purpose is on life, it's simple. Know God and tell people. That's why you exist. That's the meaning of life. What's the meaning of life? Know God, tell his story. How you do that will be your life, will be your business, will be your relationships. That's how it's done. It's just living life and telling the story. It's not always easy, but the more you do it, the more you realize that it has fruit and that you feel like you're where you belong. And that's the key. When you feel like you're at peace, which is what everybody's shooting for, you'll know that God is pleased, and you'll still work it out as you can. Thank you, David Smallbone, for coming on the show. Remember, folks, remember well.
Blessings on you, my son.
Indeed. Political correctness is a cancer, so if somebody says you're politically incorrect, always say thank you for the compliment, because if you're a Christ follower, you're the last truth teller on earth. And this is God's Comic, Brad Stine. This is David Smallbone. This is Brad Stine, his issues, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, which is what? Just putting the woke back to sleep. See you next Monday.